attendees asked was, how close are we as a voting bloc to having recovery be a single issue voter? So a single issue that somebody votes on. And, so you think of other single issue votes, you think about the environment or guns or reproductive rights, like those are all issues that bring people out and mobilize people. And the conversation that we had on that town hall really kind of inspired this conversation and wanting to have this conversation across the country. Because when you think about recovery, we actually did some polling around this, and we polled 1,200 likely voters. And when we asked the likely voters if they would consider switching the party that they normally affiliate with, if the candidate of the opposite party had a better stance on recovery and mental health. And we found that 42% of them said yes, and another 28% said they would think about it. And then 20-something% just flat out said no. But so a plurality of voters were open to that idea, and so that does speak to the piece about recovery being an issue voter that will motivate people. And then we asked the same question to people in recovery all over the country, and over 1,000 responses came back, and the number went up. Obviously, it was over 80% said that they would consider switching party and just keep recovery in mind. And then the other question that we had in that poll that was interesting was 50% of the people in recovery had said, but we don't know where our candidates stand on the issues. And so part of vote recovery is us doing the research, figuring out what a recovery voter means to us, the issues that we care about. And so you're going to hear from 4 recovery voters tonight about what they care about, but that's not, Recovery Advocacy Project isn't coming in and saying, this is what everybody believes in, this is what you have to believe in. That's not what it is. Each individual really has to take into account the issues that affect their lives, whether it's access to health services, criminal justice reform and reentry, harm reduction. Like, we all have to think about those things and how it affects our vote. I get mail all the time, like door hangers from candidates that leave stuff on my door. And the first thing I do is look to see if they have a stance around addiction. And then the next thing I do is look at their website to see if there's anything on their website. And Ryan's right. This is not about Democrat or Republican or whatever party. If you took the D or the R off of candidates' names when they're running, how would we know who to vote for? And the answer to that, I don't usually like asking questions and answering at the same time, but the answer to that is we would ask them about the issues. and so that's what vote recovery is about, for all of us to really kind of do that deep dive into finding out what we care about, and then researching candidates that are running for office. And Garrett Haid from Recovery Advocacy Project at the end of this session is going to walk through a website that we built that helps you all to do that. It's recoveryvoicesvote.com, or it's recoveryvoices.com/vote if you want to get a head start. But Garrett's going to walk you all through that. And then we actually have a voter pledge at the end where people can take an action that says, I'm going to pledge to keep recovery in mind when I go to the polls, and I'm also going to work to get somebody else in the recovery community registered to vote. And so every state has a lot of different voter registration deadlines, so a lot of this you have to do some research on your own. And so Garrett just put the recoveryvoices.com website at the bottom there. You can check that out, but listen to the recovery speakers tonight. And we just want to do some voter education. And so I'm going to give it back to Megan Fisher, who's the regional lead, and she'll facilitate the discussion tonight. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. I was waiting to be unmuted. So hi, everybody. So thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Aaron. As you've heard, we have a really exciting program tonight. We're going to launch into hearing from our speakers. Make sure you stick around after the speakers to see Garrett walk you through the website. It's a very empowering tool for you and your communities to share with others. We are going to start with our speaker, Vanessa. Vanessa is one of our Indiana state leads. She is a person in recovery herself. She is a mom, she is a student, she's a peer recovery coach. She's a professional at one of the Indiana designated regional hubs for peer recovery coach services as sponsored through the Division of Mental Health and Addiction. And she is currently also working on implementing a peer and family program in a local domestic violence home for women. And that is her main passion, is working with women in recovery. So I'd like to turn the mic over to Vanessa. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Can everyone hear me okay? All right. So thank you all for tuning in, and thank you, Recovery Advocacy Project, for asking me to speak tonight with some transparency. So again, my name is Vanessa Dirkels, and I am a person in long-term recovery. So I'm going to be completely honest here. When I was first asked to do this, I was a little nervous because I, quite frankly, have never voted. I have never utilized my voting rights ever. And it's not because they were taken from me. It was because I chose not to. So a little bit about my background here. I grew up fearing political discussions. I would see how people would interact with each other and treat each other, and it really affected me. I seen politics in a negative light for a very long time, and when I finally was able to vote at the age of 18, I was very much wrapped up in my substance dependency. So I actually used that as a tool to not vote. I used the stigma attached with substance use. And I blatantly would say, you know, well, my voice doesn't matter. And I used that excuse for a very long time. And so I remember recently, actually, it was fairly recent, I was asked by a friend of mine if I was going to vote. And my first instinct was to kind of go back to that old excuse, that old, well, I'm, you know, but the thing is I couldn't use that anymore. I couldn't use that excuse anymore, especially as an advocate. So at that point, I kind of had an epiphany. By choosing not to address politics, I'm still making a choice. And I really reflected on that. And I started asking myself questions. I was like, you know, Vanessa, you're an advocate. You know, I'm an advocate for the women in my community. I'm an advocate for those who are seeking recovery, those in recovery, those who are still in active substance misuse. And I started looking around me and what I was trying to do, and I realized at that point that for me, there is no reason for advocacy if I'm not addressing this issue. If I'm not addressing politics, if I'm not asking questions about recovery to officials, if I'm not seeking those answers, then why am I advocating? And like I said, this is strictly my point of view. So as a peer support professional, a big part of my work is motivating clients to resolve their ambivalence about using. And so they tell me things like, I want to use, but I miss my family. I want to use, but I know it's killing me. And the one that touches my heart the most is people telling me that they're tired of seeing the ones they love die around them. I started to reflect, and I realized that maybe I had some ambivalence too. You know, maybe I've got some political ambivalence going on, you know. If you're like me, again, politics make you very uncomfortable. So I had to kind of work through that and try to figure out exactly what my beliefs were and what I wanted for the people that I was serving. And I started asking questions, you know, on a community level, and you know, sometimes through research, a lot of times asking direct questions. And I had to have a change in perspective. I had to really step outside of my comfort zone, which is pretending like I didn't know anything, and start really asking these, you know, looking for the answers to my questions, and using some of that motivational interviewing that I do with my clients. So if I truly want to make a difference in my community and even on a state level, then I must be, you know, willing to resolve my own political ambivalence. Some of the things that I would say to myself is, I want to vote, but I don't want to vote for the wrong person. I want to vote, but I don't want to vote for the wrong side. For me, resolving political ambivalence requires a change in that perspective. Again, I had a very negative view. So I had to step outside of that. I really had to try to be a little objective. So, you know, I've lost people around me, as a lot of us have. And this you know, issue of addiction and substance dependency, it really affects us all in one way or another. And usually when you start asking those questions, people are going to open up about it, or at least show you a little bit of what their view is on it. And, you know, today I'm choosing to be an active part of the change that I wish to see, instead of sitting on the sidelines. And for me, that means resolving my own political ambivalence. I will be voting in future elections, and remaining silent is still a choice in my perspective. So I will be choosing somebody who stimulates the movement of recovery. So again, I'm Vanessa Dirkholz. I appreciate you all, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. I think you guys get why we asked her to speak, right? Because there's nothing more powerful than transparent share straight from the heart. I just absolutely love it. By the way, while we move our way through the speakers, people already have been, and please continue to use the chat box to have a conversation, share your reactions, or ask questions. We're going to have a little bit of time after the speakers are done to engage in dialogue, so feel free to chat away. I'm going to ask one of our newer but also most extraordinarily passionate members of Recovery Advocacy Project, Michelle, to introduce our next speaker. Garrett, if you can unmute Michelle, please.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle Kavoris. I am with Live for Lolly in Illinois, and I am just honored to introduce my friend, my mentor, a person that is just so inspiring to me for the work that she has already done at such a young age, and a mother, new mother on top of all of that. And she's a clinical social worker who focuses on substance use disorder and co-occurring challenges, co-founder and advocacy strategist for Live for Lolly and the world. She's a co-founder of Lake County Opioid Initiative, which is just a great organization to be a part of. Also the co-founder for the Illinois Harm Reduction and Recovery Coalition, and an overdose educator and naloxone distribution trainer, also smart recovery facilitator. She's a busy lady, so I'm super glad she's here. She also has advised local, state, and federal governments regarding comprehensive community strategies to reduce stigma and overdose deaths, enhance support and recovery opportunities, and decrease barriers to quality care. She started Live for Lolly, her and her family, when she lost her younger brother, Alex, nicknamed Lolly, in 2008. So in 2009, they started Live for Lolly to do all the things that she does. So she's also in long-term recovery from mental health challenges and is a counselor in private practice, Cherry Hill Counseling in Lake Zurich. So without further ado, Chelsea Lalibert, C. Barnes.
That was so sweet, Michelle. Thank you. You inspire me. So good evening, everyone. I'm really honored to be here and want to thank all of you and Ryan for leading the way on this. I mean, this is truly incredible. And most importantly, out of all of those things, I think I am a person in long-term recovery from mental health, including anxiety and grief and loss and substance use. I've definitely had my struggles with that. I'm also in recovery from eating issues. So, I mean, I've kind of been around and round with my brain. So as Michelle said, in 2008, I lost my little brother, Alex, to an overdose, which truly has, been the cornerstone of my life and outside of bringing my child into the world. What the work that we do at Live for Lolly is around bringing the community what they tell us that they need. And so we do that through peer support and harm reduction outreach and community education and advocacy. I got into this work and I live the life I live because I love people. And ultimately, I've connected the most out of all of the things that we've been able to accomplish together in Illinois with advocacy and policy work. And so what I thought I could do today is just give you guys some insights, touching on the fact that we do have a huge election coming up, and what are the things that people in recovery or a part of the recovery community really need to know in order to do this. And it's not rocket science, it's stuff you guys already know. So the first thing that I want to share is nothing about us without us, first and foremost. So my throwback moment to Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she said, women should be in every room where decisions are being made. People in recovery should be in every single room where decisions are being made about anything that impacts the recovery community, the entire continuum of it. That goes all the way up to the platform of a presidential candidate and all the way down to the ground, to the way community-based organizations are interacting with their participants. When we are not in those rooms, mistakes get made. Stigma is perpetuated about who we are and what we know and what we can do. We're smart, we're resilient, and we do not need to rely on experts to tell us what to do for us. Money is wasted, and it can be very dangerous. Quick example of this, early on when 10, 15 years ago, when people realized, oh shit, we have an overdose crisis on our hands, the message was, let's get as many counselors and social workers out there, let's get treatment out there, let's make sure that people have access to this. But what they forgot about was that mobilizing recovery support specialists who can speak the language of somebody who's struggling in those moments and is able to work in like a comprehensive team may have also been a better strategy. And we can't forget about those types of roles in our communities anymore. People in recovery helping other people in recovery. That's how this works. That's how we are able to thrive and grow. The second point that I want to make is that your story is enough. You do not need like a full-blown strategic plan with line items and outcomes and outputs and a quantitative data analysis to advocate. You need passion and you need your story. So as Michelle said, I lost my little brother to a heroin overdose in 2008. He was very young, he was 20. I was 23 at the time, and in the Chicago suburbs, which is like super upper middle class, all of our heads are in the sand, keeping up with the Joneses. That's the way things go. We were struggling to get our message out there when we decided to start our organization. And people would look at us like we were crazy when we started talking about what happened to Alex. And they either looked at us like we were crazy because they couldn't believe it, or because they were struggling too, and they didn't know that you could actually talk about it because there was so much pervasive stigma. So very early on, it was about stigma reduction and making sure that people understood this could happen to anyone, along with the message that substance use is on a continuum and substance use disorders are an illness that is treatable and people do recover. So we probably spent about 4 years singing that song to as many people who would listen, and we were able to get legislators to drill down and make decisions on impactful policies that had a lasting impact in Illinois. For example, the Good Samaritan law. Illinois was one of the first states in the country to pass a Good Samaritan law. And attached to Good Samaritan law, right, is naloxone access. And so that actually allowed us, kind of broke across the bridge in order for us to be able to get that done too. So these stories, they matter. All of our stories matter, and we should keep telling them from our heart. We don't have to have a PowerPoint presentation. You can just share, like what, I'm sorry, I think the person who spoke before me, I'm sorry, I'm bad with names, I just forgot your first name. That was so empowering what you just said, and I could see how that would impact a legislator. Thinking about thinking global and acting local. Sometimes I like wake up in the morning pre-feeling like the effects of how I'm going to feel the minute I look at my phone or turn on the news, because it's a frickin' mess out there. And, you know, we're all traumatized in various ways from this global and national strife and racial injustice and the recognition that we need systemic reforms. It often feels like the federal change is going to be long and arduous, and yes, it is, but there are a lot of voices at the table now advocating for resources and support due to the mental health and substance use fallout over the last 10 years. Look at CARA, the Comprehensive Addiction and Recovery Act, and the Support Act, and all of the funding that's coming through right now for recovery organizations and being able to help people out there amidst all of this with COVID. So there are people at the table. It's a start. And ultimately, I think that if somebody had told me local government and local initiatives matter earlier on, I probably would have spent a lot more time focusing on it. So in 2012, I met the state's attorney of our county, who was just this 35-year-old, like super friendly guy. Found out that he was a Republican running for state's attorney in Illinois, and he really wanted to focus on gangs, guns, and drugs. Okay, well, after I told him my story and, you know, we explained, you know, we really want people to have naloxone in their hands. We really want people to have peer support services accessible to them. He said, well, I'll tell you what, if I get elected, what I'll do is I'll call you and we will talk and we will figure out how to do this. And then I did get that phone call. I did get to talk to him to the point where he is somebody that I pick up the phone and talk to every week, because now every first responder in the county has Narcan. They're saving lives, and our overdose death rates have dropped significantly. We built a countywide diversion program to allow people to walk into a police department and say that they want help and then get that help. And we've had since 2016, I think 800 people do that. So if somebody would have taught me this earlier, I probably would have strategized differently and realized, oh my gosh, there is something here. So I want to encourage all of you to think about what's going on locally, what's missing, what's going well, what is your data telling you, who is at the table, who is on your county board, who is legislating at the state level, who you can talk to or who you need to talk to. So talking to them and coming up with ideas and being collaborative and making sure that the right people are at the table, not that the table is being set for you, is something that I really promote and I think is really important. Fourth point, do your research. I think it was, again, I'm sorry, I'm bad with names, Aaron at the very beginning of this who said that, how do you know what the candidates we're voting for believe? What kind of information do we have about them? You know, if anybody has watched the movie The Social Impact, I mean, there's no truer thing going on right now. You have to do your own research and you have to know where to look. Going right to the candidate's website or calling their office or talking to a director, a district director, talking to somebody who is affiliated with them and understanding where is this legislator's position on all of this will really help. And then to that point with doing research, understanding, you know, if you're going to be making an impact in your own community or if you're going to be voting, you know, what exactly do we want our legislators to vote on once they get elected? What are the things that we need them to be focusing on? So having research, yourself armed with research and understanding what it looks like out there is also really important. You know, you're going to have to go in the room and talk to that person in order to make a difference. So you're not selling an encyclopedia, you're selling people, you're selling lives, you're selling growth and thriving and resilience. So I think that that's really important. And also, like, a lot of people have asked me, what do I think about the presidential race? Take a look at the track records. Take a look at if there have been lessons learned from those track records, and if they've been able to acknowledge those things. Take a look at what has been done since that person's been elected. Take a look at all of it, because it does matter, and decide based on where your conscience is and where your values are, what aligns most with what you are what you want to promote and what you want to see happen across this country and in your own local community. And then the last point I just want to share is, you don't take no for an answer, ever. Do not let somebody tell you that this issue is not a primary issue of focus. There are 2 million people who are using heroin right now in this country. That's a lot of people. And there are more than 200 who are going to die from an overdose today. And that's climbing, and we know that. So this is an important issue, and it affects all of us. I've had the most disgusting conversations with the least caring people out there who got elected. And one thing that I've learned is that if you can find a way to channel that frustration in meeting those folks where they're at, you will change their minds. You will. And continuing to follow up with those relationships and educate and re-educate. Some legislators don't really care that much about saving lives of people who use drugs, to be honest with you. Some legislators are only really concerned about the economy and jobs, which are really, really important. And they will run on those issues because their voters also very much care about those things. So one thing, when you're dealing with somebody who may not see recovery as a viable focal point, is to talk to them about things that they connect with. I've had legislators say, well, how much is this going to cost me? How much is this going to cost taxpayers? If that person is concerned about money, then you should explain to them that it costs much less to treat someone than to incarcerate them. And it costs much less to provide treatment long-term and recovery services long-term than to have them be deceased or have them struggle and continue in the criminal justice system, which Illinois costs Illinoisans $50,000 per person per year. I mean, so a lot of this is, again, when we say let's meet people where they're at, meeting people where they're at means also recognizing that not everybody's on the same page as you. And so you have to find a way to kind of meet in the middle. One example of this is in Illinois, we passed a big omnibus bill called the Heroin Crisis Act, which was the first big omnibus package in the country that mandated that insurance providers cover medication-assisted treatments like methadone and buprenorphine and Vivitrol and naloxone without utilization controls, without pre-authorizations, in full, and they could not cut somebody off from that. And that has saved so many lives. And it was the first any legislative assembly in the country to do something like that. And there were like 30 other pieces of the bill. But that was during a conservative administration with a conservative governor and conservative people voting on it who had just got a full ear of what the advocates had to say. We were strategic because we were passionate. And so what I guess I'm encouraging everybody here to do, and what I am hoping to learn from all of you tonight and in the future, is that we can all be resources to each other. There are solutions out there. There are things that work. And we also have to all realize that it's really, really complicated out there. And we're all really struggling to deal with the realities of this pandemic and these syndemics that are working together. But if we lean on each other and we strategize together, we can be successful. We have been successful, and we will continue to put the feet to the fire of the people who need to have their feet be put to the fire. So all in all, I want to thank everybody for having me here. And, I can't wait to hear from all of you and listen and learn. And, thanks again for thinking what I have to say is meaningful. Michelle.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. Oh my goodness, I'm getting goosebumps. So these women have stepped up to the plate. Time for the men. I have the privilege of introducing a gentleman that I've known for a little while now. So we have Mitch Peters with us today to speak, and he is a person in recovery himself. He has been of service to the community in Northwest Indiana for a very long time. He has been an attorney for years. He currently serves as a public defender. He is also the founder of a local recovery house in Valparaiso, Indiana, and is currently building a second home because in Indiana, we acknowledge that housing is a major issue for folks in recovery. He's been able to engage stakeholders throughout the community and have those conversations about the importance of housing in order to further his vision of providing that housing. And he is currently a candidate for November 2020, a candidate of the Porter County Circuit Court, looking to be seated as judge. So Mitch Peters, welcome to our group, and please take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Megan. Thank you all for inviting me. It was an unexpected pleasure. I got clean October 8th, 1988. So by your definition, that sounds like long-term recovery. I've been involved in recovery my whole life, clean and involved in the disease of addiction my whole life from childhood on. And so I have a pretty good, and I've been in therapy for years. So I think all of those things are important. I have a pretty good grasp of the disease of addiction. I've been to a lot of funerals. As a public defender, not only of criminal cases, but I also do the mental health commitments. And I am also a public defender in the restoration court, which deals with mental health. So I understand the overlay between the two, homelessness, etc. I've always voted, Vanessa. Even when I was homeless in the middle of my disease in Miami, Florida, I registered and I voted. The important thing is to lean into who and what we are. We're recovering addicts. It's no secret in this town who and what I am. And people told me, you know, to lean into that. I have argued cases in front of the Court of Appeals, and I've slept under a billboard. I've eaten out of dumpsters, and I've written briefs to the U.S. Supreme Court. I mean, my life story is significant. All of our life stories are significant. There's no aspect of society that the disease of addiction does not affect. And it's not, I agree 100% with what you said, Lindsay. It's more cost effective to provide treatment than to incarcerate at $65 or $75 a day. And I see that over and over in what I do. And the other thing that we get caught up, and I'm not worried about the stigma, you know, but my whole life, there was a time when I couldn't find a job and I was just doing volunteer work. I was a lawyer, just getting clean, maybe a year. And I was doing volunteer work, going to the detox every day, starting meetings. And Porter Stark, where Megan works, did an article in the newspaper about my volunteer work with them. And a lawyer read it and he called me up and he offered me a job, you know, because I could not find a job. And it wasn't that I was stupid or lazy, you know, or using. I wasn't even using at that point. I had just burned every bridge. And sometimes people judge us by our past, and it takes some time to get through that and get through that stigma. If I get elected in this election, and I believe I'm going to, that will be the biggest eraser of stigma that I've ever seen. But that also puts added pressure on me because then I have to walk the walk. See, that's the thing. It's just like we go to meetings when we're young in recovery and we're on our motorcycles and we're burning tires and popping wheelies and acting like idiots. We got to remember, everything we do from day one to today, people are looking at. And trust me, I have made a lot of mistakes in my 32 years of recovery. I have 3 ex-wives to demonstrate some of that. So what we have to remember is people are always looking at us, people are always judging us, and it's up to us to carry the ball. once you come out of the closet, so to speak, because see, I always looked at the 12 tradition a little different. I don't think it's about hiding who I am. You know, it's about being able to go to a meeting and be safe and comfortable there. I didn't mind when people saw me going from bar to bar in a state of drug-induced haze. I didn't care then, but suddenly I get in recovery and it becomes a big secret. And I'll tell you how our voting, I'm trying to keep this under 10 minutes. I probably won't. 10 years ago, when I opened the first respite house, I went to that man that gave me a job, and he was the county commissioner. I no longer worked for him, but he was the county commissioner. And I said, hey, I've got an idea. We need a halfway house. We don't have enough beds. And he said, hey, write it up, put it together, and I'll help you get the money. And he got me $458,000 to buy a house. We renovated ourselves. We opened December 17th, 2009. Now, fast forward 10 years, when I'm trying to put together another one, a bigger one, brand new, ground up, I go to the county commissioners, who now have all changed, and they've got a multi-million-dollar trust fund, and I say, hey, I need to get some money. And I wasn't asking for all of it. I just wanted to get like 50 or 100,000, some piece, because I was going everywhere. It's hard to raise funds for what we want to do. And there aren't a lot of state funds available for brick and mortar. In fact, there are none. But that's another story. Something we should be voting on. And they wouldn't even put me on the agenda to even consider giving me a nickel out of their multi-hundred millions of dollars fund. So that's the difference. That's voting recovery. Who would I vote for if they were both on the ballot today? Well, I'm going to vote for the one who supports what we're doing. We have to know what the issues are in our community, you know, and it isn't blue or red. You know, I've got people on both sides of the aisle that step forward and support and do these things. I am very active in the community. I'm very passionate about what I do. I mean, I don't know, but it's about who we are. You know, I got a plaque once back in the 90s. In fact, a state legislator was just trying to call me. Hopefully he's sending a campaign contribution. But, well, I guess I lost what I was going to look at. It said something to the effect of, no one has reached the true state of spiritual maturity until they have found it finer to serve someone else than to serve themselves. And that's what I believe. And I believe I've learned a lot of those things over the years. They gave me that plaque. I didn't leave for another 15 or 20 years probably. But the other thing I've come to realize from a judicial point of view, jail is for people we're afraid of, not people that we're mad at. You know, all too often we're incarcerating people. We proved during the Ronald Reagan years that we cannot incarcerate our way out of this problem. And our children are dropping over dead. It's time to take action. We need to do it on a local level, and we need to elect people that are committed to moving forward along those lines. And I'm not saying, you know, I'll get elected either way, but I believe, but everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon. You know, everybody's an opioid expert because that's a major issue in every community. All I know is I've spent my whole life. I shot dope at 15. I'm 63. I've spent my whole life dealing with the effects of addiction. So those are the kind of people, and we're out there and we're able to serve, and we're going to be serving in these places. There's currently a city councilman who's in a fellowship. You know, the people are out there, we're moving forward, we're out, and we're making a difference. And that's what it's all about. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mitch. I just love hearing the passion with every person that speaks. It's phenomenal. So our final speaker, I'm going to hand the mic over to one of our Wisconsin state leads, Jesse, who's going to introduce our last speaker of the evening.
Thank you so much. So hello, yes, my name is Jessica Geschke, and I identify as a person in recovery. What that means to me is that I have not consumed a mood-altering substance since March 4th, 2004. One of 4 Wisconsin state leads for the Recovery Advocacy Project. I work full-time as a recovery specialist at Wisconsin Voices for Recovery, which is where I met our next speaker. Monte Ball is a person in long-term recovery. He's a father, a son, a brother, and an uncle. He is a recovery outreach specialist with me at Wisconsin Voices for Recovery and also a recovery coach. Monte is a former running back for the Denver Broncos of the NFL. He played college football for Wisconsin Badgers and was drafted by the Broncos in the 2nd round of the 2013 NFL draft. His NFL career sputtered out in just 3 seasons due to issues stemming from his alcoholism and depression. He is hoping to help others avoid his mistakes by speaking candidly about his struggles with alcoholism and mental health illness that contributed to the end of his professional football career. Monte always says, "My goal is to teach the importance of reaching out for help to show vulnerability." I'm extremely excited and honored to introduce not only my coworker, but friend, Mr. Monte Ball.
Wow, Jesse, kind of pumping me up right there. I think I'm gonna put my equipment on and go see if I can get back in the league. I don't know, but I appreciate that. I really most definitely appreciate it. I'm most definitely passionate about it. Can you guys hear me fine? All good? All right, cool. Passionate about all of this because these are things that are very important. Things that are very important, and you obviously have heard all the last 3 speakers speak, right? And they've done a wonderful job of obviously sharing their passion, talking about giving a little snippet of their life. But some things that I most definitely want to talk about is, yes, I am Monte Ball. I played my past life, played professionally football, but that does not define me. I am a father. I am a brother. I am a son. I'm an uncle. I am a friend. I'm a recovery coach. I'm also somebody with a checkered past. I'm someone who has recovered. Most importantly, I am a recovery voter. I am. So to me, I kind of wanted to talk about, like, what does a recovery voter mean to me? And really the first thing that pops in my mind is, I'm somebody who, I do a lot of research. I thoroughly examine the agendas of our local and national government, like who's where, who's what are they trying to do, what are they trying to push, all of these stuff. I have a strong focus on their political views, their laws, and most importantly, how that impacts our recovery community. So to me, that is what a recovery voter does, and that is what a recovery voter is. I say this because just like what Ryan said, this is the time. We must hold these elected officials and policy makers accountable. We have to. We must ask them to take a position on the issues that we care about, our recovery community. We need to demand this stuff, you guys. We need to continue to push for it. We need to continue to have these talks. We need to continue to shout and scream at the top of our lungs on cliffs, mountains, etc., to really push exactly what we want, exactly what we need to see in our communities. So I bring myself back to that question: what is a recovery voter? I think that a recovery voter is also somebody who thinks about how some of these laws are affecting their loved ones. Not just how it's affecting you, but how is it affecting your loved ones and your friends? I bring it to that point because I do have family members. I do have friends who are convicted felons. I am not a convicted felon. And I thank God that I sobered up at the time that I did, because I was on the path that would have led me to prison. I would be sitting in prison right now. So I'm not a convicted felon, but I challenge people those who are, to do your research. I share with everybody that do your research and really figure out if you can or cannot vote. Really figure that out. Do your research to really figure that out. But if you can't, obviously if you can, go vote. But if you can't, use your social media to encourage people to vote. Talk to individuals in your AA meetings or Zoom meetings, etc., about voting. Keep the conversation alive. Talk about something that you're passionate about in the recovery community that you would like to see a change in. Talk about that. Spread those words. If you aren't capable of voting, you can still make an impact. You can still have a significant amount of influence. Create your own platform. It's kind of something that I really, really love to harp on. And also something that I'm really huge in, really, really huge in. And I think that this kind of encompasses everything that we're sitting here talking about is creating that sense of community, finding that sense of community. And for me, what better way to contribute to society than to say that you voted? What better way to contribute than to say that you voted? For me, I struggled. Oh my gosh, you guys, I struggled. I struggled with a lot of things. Self-identity crisis. I struggled with opening up about my alcoholism, just feeling as if I'm living in a fishbowl my entire life. I go here, I do this, I'm gonna find it on Twitter, I'm gonna see it on Facebook. So that was just really, really difficult for me. So it was so tough for me to open up about my alcoholism until I found out that a recovery community existed. The moment that I found that out, because obviously I didn't know of it, but once I found that out, it seemed as if it was a lot easier for me to open up. I found my sense of community. I found it. It was a goal of mine once I found it to get involved, become engaged, figure out ways how I'm going to contribute, figure out ways how I'm going to bring other people with me, figure out ways how I'm going to use my platform to really shed light on some of these laws that are really affecting our recovery community, or the lack thereof. Laws that are not being put into place that is affecting our recovery community. That is how I've gotten involved, and that's how I will continue to stay involved. Find your sense of community, use your voice, spread love, chat with people about, some people, their local governments, who they're seeing, what they're trying to do. Have your seminars, do whatever you need to do to keep the discussion open. That's the important part about this, to use our voice. And it's crazy that as I was sitting here listening to everybody talk and stuff, I was reading the tabs on the side, and I saw that Randy Anderson, I believe, said something in here that really struck a nerve with me. It really struck a nerve with me. He said that he was under the impression, and please forgive me if I'm not quoting this correctly, Randy, but you said something along the lines of, you believe that, your one vote, your one voice, it's not going to make a difference. And I know so many people that think that. And I kind of wanted, as soon as I saw that, I thought of a story that I kind of want to reflect on here with you guys. And this is very true. So for me, when I was going through my recovery process, I want to take you back to the early stages of it. I was struggling big time with the fact that I knew football was over for me. I mean, I started at the age of 8. I wanted to be a running back for the Denver Broncos. Grew up a Denver Broncos fan my entire life, and was fortunate enough to become a running back for the Denver Broncos. And my alcoholism deterred me off of that path, and obviously led me down a very dark path, and led me into on top of a couch, sitting on a couch, talking to my therapist. Well, I'm going to take you back to that first meeting that I had with him, and it'll stick with me for the rest of my life. And again, I'm going to tie all this here together. But in the therapy session, he noticed that I was struggling with this self-identity. Like, am I going to go back to the league? Am I not? If I'm not going to play football, then who am I? It's always Monte Ball, former Denver Bronco. So now I didn't know at the time. And one thing that he said to me was, Monte, football was only a piece of the puzzle. It was not the entire puzzle. And that is something that stuck with me for the rest of my life. I bring that up because that was one voice. That was one person that had a significant impact for the rest of my life. I would not be sitting here today if I did not hear those words from that one person. So that brings me back to what Randy said. Your one vote, your voice matters. You have way more influence than you believe. Then we need to make a change. We most definitely need to make a change. And finally, I love what Chelsea said. You know, I really, really love what Chelsea said. Don't take no for an answer. That is very true. Do not take no for an answer. Be as persistent as possible. Become as annoying as possible. Emails, even text if you, for some reason, have their number, Facebook posts, etc. Use your voice. Become very persistent and do your research. Research. I cannot say that. I can't say that too many times. Research. Do your research. Figure out what's going on around you, and make sure you put your vote in there, you guys. Make sure you put your vote in there. Thank you guys for listening to me. I most definitely want to say thank you to the Recovery Advocacy Project for having me. Let me share a little snippet of my story. But again, the most important thing is to get out and vote. Your voice most definitely matters, and bring others along with you and get to them polls. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Monte. And to all the speakers, a sincere thank you for sharing your time and your heart, right? Everybody spoke very passionately and very honestly about what has brought you to the point of being an advocate and what continues to drive you forward. And that's what we're all working towards. So just for a few minutes here, I wanted to open the floor for anybody who, we've had a really active chat box. It's been amazing. Didn't know if anybody really wanted to have a chance to speak up and share a reaction to any of the speakers, or if you, in your ponderings while we've been talking about being these persistent professionals, as Randy Anderson just called it, if there's a particular issue that you know you're aware of should be a single point recovery issue in your state that you'd like to talk about. Does anybody have any reactions? If you can raise your hand either physically or through Zoom, then Garrett can kind of monitor the mute button for us. We have a shy group tonight. Randy, is that you raising your hand?
Is he raising? Randy, are you raising your hand? Okay.
Yeah, he wants to talk.
I'm not shy. I would have probably been more involved in this, and thank you, Megan, for taking the lead on this. Had I not have my own family problems that I'm dealing with right now, my sister is in active use again, and I'm her guardian. So my life is consumed with trying to save my sister's life. And from the stories I've heard tonight, I know there's a lot of people on this Zoom that have a very similar story. So I just wanted to say first, thank you guys for putting this together and for sharing part of your stories and being vulnerable and letting us learn more all about you. And yeah, Monty, I love you, bro. Thanks for what you do. I would love, I think Ryan and I have talked about this before. I think if we could get, and it's getting there, don't get me wrong, like now the LA Raiders or the Darren just came out, and like we need, like people look up to professional athletes so much. Like if we could get, and we know there's more of them in recovery that just aren't coming forward, but if we could get an audience like that, or someone with enough people like that stature to come forward and say, yep, I struggled, look what I do now. You know, I think that could be a game changer. So Monty, thank you for having the courage and bravery to do that. One of my best friends is a huge Broncos fan. You guys will hate me. I'm a Dallas fan, so go ahead. Let me hear the boos in the background. That's fine. We did beat the Atlanta by 1 point on Sunday. It was the best. What was it? Like it was a record. Like in 87 years, no team has ever did what Dallas did on Sunday. So I'll just take that. But anyways, thanks you guys. I just wanted to say thank you and for putting this together. And it excites me, and I can't wait to get back at it again and really be more involved with this whole project. So thank you guys.
Thanks, Randy. We all love you.
I'm gonna go ahead and unmute Marlene, and then we're gonna go to Michelle. And then I wanna make sure that we do have some time to show everyone the tools, so this isn't all for nothing. and they have some ideas of what to go for, and then we can come back to any stories or questions or comments. So first, Marlene, you should be able to unmute yourself.
I would love to. Thank you very much, everybody. I'd like to say thank you for all the presenters. Monte, I have to state that in Michigan, we're doing that. So the individual that just mentioned about the promotion using NFL players, we are doing that in the Detroit area in Michigan. So while you were chit-chatting, I was sitting on my buddy who was an old Dallas Cowboy. That's how cool Divine works. And I said, do you know, I know you're not, but that gentleman just said that's his team. I know where you came from, Bronco. But I'm gonna make some connections so that we can start doing this nationwide. And that's why my heart got so excited. So thank you very much for allowing me to sit in on this. And we're gonna be connected for a reason. So I appreciate it. I'll be in contact.
Thank you. And Michelle?
Yes, thank you. I just want, go Bears, number one. And then I just wanted to thank everyone for their passion and the change, because I know the change starts with all of us, right? Like it has to be us. We have to do this. Otherwise our kids are going to be stuck trying to clean up the mess that we've all created and allowed. So I'm just grateful to be here. And Vanessa, so much of what you said, because I don't know anything about politics. I never cared. I was too busy getting high. Like, I didn't care. It didn't matter to me. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to know what's going on. Because I mean, I think I used to pick, you know, my candidates by, you know, the name, like a horse at the, you know, at the horse races, like if it had a pretty name or sounded good, like, I don't know, like, and now I need to know, because it affects everything that happens from here forward, and I have to take it seriously. So thank you for sharing that and expressing so many things that I feel right now, because I just feel like I need to get educated. So important. And Monty, thank you so much for being so raw and honest, and everyone else for sharing. It's very, very blessed to be a part of this. So thanks.
Thank you. Megan, did you have any other comments, questions, or anything you wanted to add before I go into the site?
I don't think so. I agree. Let's show them the website, and then we can close it out with a little more dialogue.
Great. Aaron's messaging me. Hi, everybody. My name is Garrett Haight. I'm one of the organizing directors for the Recovery Advocacy Project. Monte, Vanessa, Chelsea, Mitch, thank you so much. You know, I kind of was 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I was like, I was in Vanessa's exact place, right? Like, I did not vote, did not want to vote, didn't want to hear about anything. And like a lot of us, my desire to get involved came from grief, right? I was just watching friends, you know, overdose and die while I was going through my own personal recovery. And I was told, which really got me active, enraged, whatever the word may be, but I was told that this is just the way things go. When it comes to addiction, people are gonna die, buy a suit, you're gonna be going to a lot of funerals, and that's just the way it is. My friends were dying at such a rapid pace, you know, one every month, medium age, 24 years old, their whole lives ahead of them, just were struggling while they were seeking help, while they were asking for help. These weren't people that were like, I just want to keep going on to what they were doing. They were begging for help, right? And it just didn't sit right. I loved what Chelsea had said about, I wish somebody would have told me to start at a local level, right? Because I started getting involved in advocacy, and I was like fighting on this national level, and I'm going after hundreds of billions of dollars, and we need to tear down stigma, and it's all well and good and great, but that is a long, drawn out process of navigating and who's taking credit and which, you know, it's just a whole thing. And while I was doing all that work, my friends were still dying. It wasn't translating into the local level, right? So myself and Ryan and a few of us got together. I didn't know what I was doing was local advocacy. I was just angry, and we just kind of stormed our local congresswoman's office. And she said to us, what are you talking about? I don't even know what a sober living is. Meanwhile, she could throw a stone and hit one. That's how many there were in her local area. So it just, what that turned into was us going sober living to recovery house, registering people under the age of 25 who have never voted before, who are like Vanessa, who are like me. They got registered to vote, and what happened? Legislators started listening to us. That congresswoman worked with us, put her whole team on it to pass new legislation that started at the local level, went to the state, and then turned into federal. So imagine if we had that happening throughout the country. Politicians listen to two things: money and voters, right? Numbers and voters. So we don't have all the funds in the world right now, but we certainly have the numbers. If we could just organize and come together, we can actually make sustained change. That being said, right, and partly why Vote Recovery was created, and Aaron went into it in the beginning, like how close are we to creating a, this being a single issue for voters. Can everyone see my screen? Great. Again, I wish I would have known to get local. I act local. When we were doing the voter registration, we ended up registering that day, close to about 100 people. We went door to door with paper ballots, not exactly what we're going to be able to do right now. It was effective. We had our stories, we had paper, we had pens, we invited people over to the house, and we ordered pancakes. It was a great day. Politicians started listening, but we didn't really know what we were doing, right? So Vote Recovery has built this site for our community specifically, right? The Recovery Advocacy Project has put this together so somebody can come to this website. I was one of those people, convicted felon, that would always say, I'm not able to vote, I have a record. And it was the number one thing that would come out of my mouth. Every time somebody said, do you vote? I can't vote, I'm a record. No idea if that was true or not. Just third-hand knowledge told me that that was true. The truth is, I was completely able to vote. I had moved out of the state of Florida. I was living somewhere else. I just tried to register. I was fine. They let me, I've been voting ever since, right? But I didn't know anything, right? I didn't do any research on my part. So this site is here for our community to use and to educate themselves. And that's what this is all about, voter education. So when you come here, recoveryvoices.com/vote, kind of put this as easy as possible, right? A four-step process. It's getting yourself involved, educating yourself. What do we do if like Aaron had said, if we take away the D and the R, what do we know what to vote for? What issues do we care about? Me personally, I care about housing, criminal justice reform, voter restoration rights. I vote on those issues. Like that makes me a recovery voter. But there's some tools that I need to have at my disposal, and they're here, right? So if we click this View the Voter tool, you can show this to yourself, your friends, your family. Right here from this site, you can check your voter registration status, which was important to me, right? I immediately I'm able to now. I did this the other day. It might take time because of Zoom to load. Oh, here we go. Who can vote? Can you vote? Who can't vote? If you scroll down, give me a second. It's going to take a second to load. I'm going to turn off my video, and that should help. Okay, good. Double check your voter registration status. So go on here to this site, put in your first and last name, your address. You fill this out. You just hit here to continue. It will tell you if you are registered to vote. Great. Okay. So a lot of the things that we were discussing and the other speakers were discussing today, housing, criminal justice reform, a lot of issues come up. And we don't always know where our candidates stand on issues, where we stand on issues, right? So we put together this list, right? And this is a working list. It will grow, but a lot of recovery, addiction really affects every part of the political landscape, right? There's not one area that you can't really touch, and I think it was Chelsea had brought up about the financial impact of things, right? Like I've had to do that with legislators who really don't care about, and that's just the sad truth. They don't care about our community, but they do care about numbers. So when you can, adequately explain the cost-saving benefits of helping somebody through the recovery process, sometimes that'll get people to listen. But we created this site to where you can, I'm gonna just go back to up here. Again, I'm sorry for taking time to load, but here we go, right? So if we were talking about, what's something that was mentioned? Recovery support services, right? We put this here so somebody can start diving into the issues, right? Educate yourself on these issues. For this one specifically, it'll take you to a page on the William White papers, right? Same thing if you went to mass incarceration. Issues. Familiarize yourself with issues, right? Because when you do approach a candidate, we want to know where they stand on these issues. The other day, I tell this story, the other day, I went knocking on doors for a candidate with a different letter than what I normally support. He has been great on our issues. He shows up continuously for our community. He has been actively fighting on voter restoration rights for convicted felons in the state of Nevada. I probably don't agree with a lot of his other politics, but this man showed up. I'm a single issue voter around these issues, and I'm supporting somebody of a different political party because of that. So this site is here for our community. You can educate yourself. I'm gonna go back to the beginning here because there's a few other things I wanna show people that are pretty cool. If you aren't registered to vote and it tells you that from the same site, from the same voter tools here, you can register to vote right from this site. You can find your polling place that's closest to you right from this site. We'll go into the pledge at the end. The last thing. So again, this goes back to what Vanessa was saying. My story is I didn't know much about politics, right? I didn't know what the difference was between a state senator and a U.S. congressperson, or a state assembly member and a Congress. Or what is the, what are the roles of my county commission? So we put this together for new voters or people that need a refresher, or you just never really understood it like me. You here can learn about what the different offices are. You can understand, so if you want to know what is your state representative, right? State representative, assembly members, and it'll tell you, state senator, secretary of state, your sheriff, your judges, your school board members. Knowing where these people, a lot of our community is very focused on prevention, right? Like, where does your school board members stand on these issues? That's something important to know. For me, people that are being incarcerated because of these issues, am I voting for judges who are in support of that or against that? I should be educating myself, and I should know what the roles are of these offices. So everything is here for you to explore. We encourage you to explore. If you find something that's missing in that issues thing, you can always email Aaron and myself, and we'll get it added to the site. Again, like I said, it's a working site, but really this is here for people of our community and anybody who wants to use it, but primarily our community to really start engaging yourself in the process of, civic engagement, understanding that we want more peer recovery supports, and we want judges to treat us fairly, and we want all of these things. It does take a little bit of research and work to get some things done. We want to make sure that we are putting people in office who are allowing us to sit at those tables, because some people that are there right now won't let us sit down. And we have the power to change that. I think we're at that point, and I loved how Randy brought up I was watching Monday Night Football also, and it's great when we have our celebrities and professional athletes standing up and taking away that stigma, right? What was really cool about that moment was it wasn't even Darren, who I got to meet a couple of weeks ago. He's awesome, but it was his starting QB, who was like, what do you want people to most understand about the player? And he's like, well, the catches and everything was great, but what you really see is somebody who has recovered from addiction. And to have your teammate talking like I just think like we are getting there with the stigma part of this, where we are not getting, and I'm not saying not getting. For me, somebody who was, the last time I was arrested was 11 years ago. 6 months ago, I was denied renter's agreement because of a criminal record. That's past stigma. That's discrimination, right? Who is in power in the state? Who is allowing something like that to happen? Somebody who pays their taxes, who has paid their debt to society, who has you know, paid off all of my fines and everything that I've done 10 years ago. Why am I still being denied access to have a home? You know, and those are the types of things that I need to do research on and I need to find out. So I hope everyone, you know, takes the opportunity to use these tools, use this site, make sure you're registered to vote, but also make sure you're taking it a step forward, educate yourself on where your politicians stand, what bills are in process, what's gonna hurt and harm the community. And if we do this together and we work together, we can definitely make change. I'm gonna pull Aaron in and unmute him just in case I missed anything, and I already did because I do. I move quickly, and I thank the pledge. Aaron, you want
Before you launch into the pledge, Garrett, we did have one question from Chelsea, if you have a moment to answer it.
I'll do my best.
And Chelsea was wondering if, I'm not finding it right now, there it is.
Yes,
Is
I can unmute
going to be encouraging people to vote via any targeted digital advertising? Or in other words, is there a promotion plan or an engagement plan for recovery voters as we get closer to election day?
So I unmuted Chelsea, if that helps also. I think I understand it. I mean, what our plan is right now is obviously this is recorded, so we can, you know, launch this across our social. Ryan will be putting things up. We're holding 10 of these types of events, listening to recovery voters, and the way I was thinking of these events kind of taking place, it's like, what would I need to hear 4 years ago that would get me out of my seat and inspire me to get up? The same thing that I needed to hear something to enter recovery. Like, what would I need to hear? Would it be a message from Monty or a message from Vanessa as somebody who's never voted before? Like, what would I need to hear as somebody who is new to the civic engagement process? Maybe not new to recovery, or maybe new to recovery or advocacy, but what would I need to hear? So over the next, I don't know, month, we're going to have a series of these. We have elected officials speaking, we have people running for office, we have people in recovery, we have people that represent criminal justice and mental health and all of these different issues in the attempt to inspire and engage our community to actually, you know, like, take this seriously. That this is a powerful way to create change. We did this the other day with Tennessee, and I was speaking, but Aaron texted me, and it was cool because when we put up this website, and there was like a mayor and 2 judges that were speaking, and Aaron was texting me, he was like, when we put up this website, you could see their eyes light up, because like, oh, people are gonna register to vote on this issue. Like, that is huge. Like, he's like, yo, you gotta see the judges' eyes. Like, they got really excited because our community is talking about voting. And that's kind of our strategy with this right now. But we're open to suggestions, and we'll work with you if you got any other ideas.
Yeah, I think, you know, just in addition to that, you know, we're a word of mouth community. Like, we talk to one another. It's like this resource, the Vote Recovery Resource Hub, like, if you post it on social media and you let people know this has everything, that it answers any question. All you got, a lot of the stuff you just have to put in, it's like state by state. And so we have to encourage people to like do that sort of, go through that process, you know? But the more that you share that resource and let people know why it's important to you and why it's important to the recovery community, I think people are going to keep passing it on. And we do it. This is one of 10 town halls that we're doing across the country. And so we're pretty excited about it. But Garrett pretty much covered all the stuff on the website. I don't really have too much more to add unless Megan has something. We do want to ask you all to take the voter pledge that we put in the chat box. It's just saying, you know, you want to keep recovery front and center when you're going to the polls, and you're going to work to register one other voter in recovery. That's it. That's all the pledge is. And so that's our call to action. And I think that if we, think about the fact that we're doing 10 of these across the country and all the participants registering other people to vote, that's pretty powerful. And so I want to thank the speakers as well. All four were fantastic. And thank Megan for her leadership in the region. And unless there's any other questions, I think thank you all for being a part of this.
Yeah, I would just add, please go explore the site. There's so much in there that I couldn't get done in 10 minutes. I mean, like you could write your legislators. There's sample ballots, so you could practice voting. I mean, like the list goes on and on and on. And just spread the word, like Aaron said, and encourage people to not just register to vote, but also to hold people's feet to the fire, like Chelsea said. But thank you all. I appreciate it. Anybody else have any comments, questions, hand raises? No. Megan, do you have any closing remarks?
I think you guys covered it. I just really want to echo all the thanks to the speakers, to each and every one of you for showing up. Just by being here tonight, you are a recovery voter, and it implies that you're passionate enough to get out there and take the next action step. So thank you. We hope to see you at more Recovery Advocacy Project events, and everybody have a great evening.
Bye, everyone. Stay safe. Thanks.
Bye-bye.